Well, hello. We have a small session, but honestly, I think that that's going to be super beneficial in a way because we'll be able to work pretty much one-on-one with each other, which will be super exciting. To introduce myself, I'm Isabella Marquez. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Washington, D.C. fellow for Ignite National. So I'm currently like just a couple blocks from the White House, which is super cool. But today we're going to talk about the importance. Ooh, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Today we're going to talk about the importance of local politics. So not just the things we think of like senators, representatives, the president. We're going to talk about how impactful local politics can be and how we can play a role in that. And Tira is also going to introduce herself quickly. You're muted.
Sorry, I can't find my unmute button, but I just found it. Hi, Diana. It's like we're talking directly to you, but my name is Tiara and I serve as Ignite's Chief Program Officer. I am super excited to be here in community with you two. I'm really excited about this presentation that Isabella is going to be presenting to us both. And if you would like to be my friend, you can follow me right there on Instagram.
Yeah, me too. We can all connect at the end too before you pop out. Because really everything is about networking. So it's good to stay in touch. This is a little video. If you're familiar with Ignite, you've probably seen it before, but I think it does a really good job of talking about what Ignite serves to do. And what I like to say is we're all about giving you the tools that you need to do what you want to do. I try not to say the term empower you because I believe that every woman is already empowered. It's just about giving you the confidence to find that power within yourself and do whatever it is you want within the political world.
President. When I'm 13, I won't anymore. Because no one will tell me that I can do this. They tell me other things like, don't raise your hand so much. Wait your turn. Let the other kids answer. Be a good girl. They'll joke that I'm bossy instead of telling me that I'm a leader. So I'll give up. But if grown-ups, like my mom and dad, grandpa and grandma, and even my teachers, just told me that I belonged here, I would believe them. I know if I run for office someday, I can win just like any boy. I want to be a mayor, a governor, a senator, a president. Tell me I can, and I will.
So yeah, every organization has a mission statement, obviously, and this is ours, but pretty much Ignite is a movement of young women who are ready and eager to become the next generation of political leaders. So I love this graphic because I think it does a really great job of giving us a visual representation of what we've got going on. So as you saw in the video, 51% of the population are women. And obviously we're underrepresented in literally every part of the government, which is ridiculous because over half of us are women and the people in Congress don't look like us, in many ways don't understand us and don't reflect who we are. And so the goal of Ignite is to make sure that women are getting involved in every single part of the political process. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because I think a lot of times what we're taught in school is the president does everything. And the president's important, but the president's a figurehead, right? A lot of what actually happens is at the ground level. So you step outside of your house and you cross a crosswalk, right? You need that crosswalk to tell the cars, hey, it's my turn. That happens from your locally elected officials. So your community boards, your city councils, that's where all that changes that you can actually see on a day-to-day. And we're going to talk about how to get involved. Okay, so I pretty much just said this, but it's a really great visual representation. I'm super visual. I don't know how you both learn best, but for me, this is the key. And you can see, right, like the biggest part of the pyramid has the most positions, and it's where all the change is affected. And we need to start changing that conversation so that we understand that just because something is perhaps less, I don't want to say less highly regarded, maybe like we don't treat our community boards in the same way that we treat our Congress people, we still see just as much change there. And what's cool about working with your community board is you can be more niche within your passion. So maybe you're super into sex education. Maybe you're really into gun reform. Big thing that's going on in DC right now is laws for bikers, creating bike lanes, creating bike stops. You get to do all of that because you can focus way more on one issue. So how we're going to sort of run today is defining our mission and figuring out what that is. And while I'm a fellow for Ignite, it doesn't mean that mine is super clearly defined either. But what I have learned through my experience with Ignite as a student and now as somebody who works for Ignite is that in order to get involved, we need to really understand what our passion is and where we want to go with that. So we have a couple questions on here that I think are really, really great things that you can take within your own time and process in order to figure out, okay, like, what do I actually care about? Where am I going to put my time and my resources? Because you and those resources are valuable and they shouldn't be wasted. So Tiara's going to flash some of the questions up there. So what drives you to get up every day? What are the things that energize you? What are you passionate about? What convictions do you have about this world? What are some social issues in your community that you care about? And maybe these are super obvious to you. Maybe you're like, for me in my community, it was elder reform. It was creating connections between the youth and the older folk in my community and sharing experiences, creating bonds. Maybe for someone else, that's sex education reform. Maybe it's veteran affairs reform. Whatever that is, it's personal to you. And when you think about it, it should sort of start like a fire in your chest and in your belly. And if it does that, then that's probably the issue you should be focusing on. Okay, so we've talked about our why, and now we're going to talk about our impact. So we think about, why am I doing this work? What do I care about? And how do I want to see my work turn out? Because I think a lot of times, at least in my own work, I think, all right, I'm really angry about this and I'm really passionate about this, but I have a hard time putting into words and creating a tangible, digestible process of how I'm actually going to take that passion and put it into action. So what type of impact do you want to have in your community, state, or the world at large? And it's also important to think about, what do you want to have shifted or changed as a result of your existence, right? I think at large, a conversation I often have, with myself is, we don't really know the purpose of life or what comes after exactly. But what we do know is that our existence matters and it affects those that comes after us. So if there's one thing we can do to make every day a little bit easier for one group of people or one person, then we've done something with our lives and we've made them matter. And that is the one thing that I'm sure of in this world that is our purpose, is to leave this earth and our communities better than we found it. So boards and commissions. When I first heard this, I was like, kind of an abstract thing. What the heck is a board and commission? Pretty much, if you break it down, it is getting involved at the most local level. It looks different because we exist in a government that is created on federalism, right? So every state operates differently, every city, every town, every village, so on and so forth. But it offers people a way to get involved at the grassroots level in their community. So at the most basic level, you can just go to these. Okay, so for example, I like examples, I think they're helpful. So in DC, we have this thing, it's called the ANC. And it is literally a group of people, sort of like a city council, but they're just for the neighborhoods. So my neighborhood has one. And I can go at the most basic level and just sit in on the meetings, ask questions. They're the people who I was talking about, the crosswalk. That's the group of people who created the new crosswalk outside my building. But at a higher level, I could run for a position. I could ask one of the ANC members if I could work with them for the summer. A lot of these places do internships. And I think there is no right answer. It's just about what resources do you want to give? What time do you have? And it's as simple really as Googling, let's say, Washington, D.C. local boards, Washington, D.C. local commissions. They'll pop right up. It's all public and it's supposed to be incredibly accessible because that's what the government's there for. Yeah, so like I just said, it's all area specific. And I think the ANC, like I haven't heard of an ANC in any other area. It doesn't mean that they don't exist, but I didn't know about them before I moved here 3.5 years ago. So take the time to really look into your community and see what resources and what boards exist there for you to get involved with. Again, things to think about when you're picking a seat, right? So DC has the mayor's office and the city council and the ANC. And how the heck do I know where I want to land? Well, I asked myself, what do I care about the most? I care about creating a sense of community everywhere I am. Because I believe that when people feel like they belong, they will be their best selves. They act the most change on their own. So for me, the ANC was where I wanted to be because it is the smallest, most community centered. Now, Diana, I don't know if you feel comfortable popping off mute, but if you want to share what you care about most here, and I would love to hear from you. If not, no big deal. Feel free to chat or say whatever you'd like.
Yeah, I don't mind coming off mute. Might use
Awesome.
voice and chat, just depending on where I am. But issues that I care about most are affordable and equitable housing. I live in a giant metropolitan city where the cost of living is increasing every year, and it's just getting harder and harder for people to afford to live in the communities that they've known their entire lives. And just seeing an increased number of unhoused people, and just overall that just, it frustrates me, it angers me, it saddens me. So for me, that's like the top driving force in the change that I want to make someday.
Yeah, I think that that's awesome. And I'm really glad that you know what you're passionate about, because I think that's the biggest step. Tiara's throwing some good questions in there. Have you heard about the boards and commissions prior?
Yeah, so after I graduated college and I moved back home, like to my hometown, I've been able to do more research. I am from Los Angeles, so I know we have our city council, and then our county has a county board of supervisors. So I've just begun doing that research and just breaking everything down. We also have what is known as neighborhood councils. So they're smaller, volunteer-based. They're volunteer-based, but they still get elected. They're people in the community who essentially do what the city council does, but on a smaller macro level. So it really is like just your neighborhood, like a small, maybe 5-mile radius, or just something that's walking distance. And I believe we're close to 100. I'm not sure, but they just break things down in a more local level. So I guess that would be like the first tier of getting involved in local governments here in the city. And then you would go up to city council.
Yeah, definitely.
Board of supervisors.
I think what you're talking about at the lowest level sounds a lot like DC's ANC, which is super interesting. And I found like one thing that I found difficult about navigating the system is that if you do run, right, like it's a lot of resources to run, and then it is volunteer, so it is unpaid. Pros and cons, obviously. You have to really care about it to do it, but you also have to have the resources and the finances to work pretty much a full-time job for the community and then another full-time job. Have you thought at all about getting directly involved in either of the ones that you mentioned?
Yes. So For local, like the neighborhood council, they're looking for community members to be part of committees. That doesn't require going through an election process. It's just a matter of attending the committee monthly and just seeing if that's an area that you're interested in, because every council has different committees, like beautification or legislative. It varies from community to community. You just attend a meeting if you're interested, and then I believe you just contact the person in charge to join. That would be the first step. I mean, I'm really interested in all of them because I really want to focus on the local level. I like the idea of running in local politics, but I obviously live in a giant metropolitan city. So, serving on the board of supervisors or city council is a local position. But when you live in a city of, 4 million people, that that is, it shifts versus if you were in a smaller community of about 40,000 people. But nevertheless, I'm pretty open to all of those local positions. I'm just trying to figure out, I guess, what my timeline would be after the fact. I am trying to go to grad school.
Yeah. I sort of feel like we're in similar boats right now. Let me just say, you're super well researched, so that's great. You've kind of tackled, I think, what for a lot of people is the hardest part, which is like, what the heck actually exists in my community? And you articulated it very clearly to me, which to me means you understand exactly what you're talking about. So that's awesome. And I agree, like, full transparency, it's something I've been thinking a lot about in my community as well. And I'm also trying to go to grad school. So trying to decide how to balance involvement with also making sure that you're taking the necessary steps you need in your education is definitely tricky. And I guess, unfortunately for the circumstance, relate to that very well. But do you know, like maybe they have internships or something where you could just do it for a semester before you actually joined, so you could get involved in that way. / sometimes they don't, but if you just reach out to, I guess, Tiara just found the person, they'll make an internship for you or some form of involvement that fits your schedule, because they always need help.
No, absolutely. Early on, before the pandemic even existed in our lives, I had done my research and reached out to people and networked and applied to programs and internships, but then life threw us a giant curveball, and every opportunity that I had initiated or applied to was canceled.
I understand.
Mm-hmm. So, and a lot of them are they haven't announced if they're going to renew anything, if they even have, allegedly they don't have money in their budgets, or, so I don't know if the opportunities that I was looking at last year are going to be available this year, but I am still making sure that I do my research.
Yeah, I hear you completely. And I think with COVID, it is really difficult because prior, I think there was a more precise or like cookie cutter path where we could be like, hey, here's a link, apply for this internship, schedule your classes around it, and go to the internship. And now we're not only reinventing the way that we think and we learn and we operate every day, we're also reinventing the way in which we can get involved while we're trying to take care of ourselves online. So it's a lot. And perhaps you already do this, but if you don't, give yourself some grace. Tiara has taught me that word, and it's something I use every day now. But just really recognizing the fact that there's a lot going on in this world. And if you don't, and I say this to myself too, immediately get involved in your boards and commissions, it doesn't mean that you won't. And a lot of this stuff is just fully and completely out of our control. I mean, the world is a crapshoot right now. And we're just doing our best to make it work. But to me, it sounds like once the world is back in where it needs to be, you will get exactly where you need to be. I wonder if they,
Yeah, I was gonna say, Isabella, especially I loved everything that you just said. And even if it's not even the right time to actually apply, one basic next step you can do is just tap into their meetings that should be happening online, and trying to figure out it, or following all the commissioners by going to the links that I sent to you in the chat box. Just follow them on LinkedIn or social media and start just informally being in their spaces and connecting with them for when you are ready to engage. But one basic thing that you can start doing is just being present in their meetings, so that if you should apply in the future, whatever you should do moving forward, not only do you have an idea of the structure and the way that they already do things, but then they're familiar because you're always showing up to things too with who you are, which will better position yourself when you actually apply for the commission or board. And it's funny that Affordable Housing Commission was the very first one that popped up when I clicked the link on here too. So I think that you're definitely in the right stage.
No, absolutely. Thank you. And I really appreciate the links and the information. I know it can be pretty overwhelming when you're just starting the whole research process and you're trying to navigate everything and figure out, well, where do I start? What do I want to do? What do I like, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you for the information.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Because this is such a, I guess, small session, is there anything else that you think we could do to support you in this process, or any other questions you have that we might be able to answer?
I guess, well, I'm not, again, I'm just based on my trajectory on going to school. I don't want to say that I don't have to worry, but I don't have to look too deep and start researching about, how to launch a campaign or fundraising or all of the important details, but I would like to have the resources there. So whenever I do have off time, or, slowly start to gather the information that I need and start to slowly come up with a plan, as that way that when the day finally comes, I won't feel so overwhelmed, because I will have already collected all of the necessary resources and information and potential connections that could help me out in the future.
Yeah, totally. I hear you on prior planning. I agree. And I think one thing to do, and not to just plug Ignite for the sake of plugging Ignite, but quite seriously, we always have different workshops going on that will provide you with all of those resources. So one thing that I do to hold myself accountable in that way is I sign myself up for a career series that we're doing through Ignite. And it meets every once in a while, but I keep it in my calendar. Every time I go to a meeting, I'm reminding myself what I'm here for, what my goal is, what I'm trying to achieve. And so while I maybe am not doing research and spending that much time outside of those meetings working on my political goals, those calendar reminders and those events in which I'm surrounded by other empowered women who are trying to do the same things help me a lot. Keep in the back of my mind, hey, that idea is there. And just because you're not doing it in this moment doesn't mean you can forget about it. You got to keep marinating the need to run or want to run for office. So I'd be happy to connect with you outside of this. And so would Tiara, of course, about other events we have going on. And if you follow me on Instagram, I'll chat you my Instagram again. I can DM you different events that we have, so you can come, and I'll let you know which ones I'm going to.
Absolutely. I really appreciate that, especially because, with everything going on, everything's virtual, but I always feel like I'm missing out on some kind of event because everything's always happening at the same time now.
Oh, totally. And you know what? We probably are missing out on things because there's no way to keep track of everything. While our lives are so much less in demand in person, we are more in demand than we've ever been, because everybody thinks we must be accessible 72 hours a day because the world is in so many different time zones. and that's impossible. You just can't do it.
Mhm.
So grace, like Tiara always says. But I'm happy to help you and forward you things. So hopefully that'll help.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you two use LinkedIn, but I will pull up my LinkedIn. That's just kind of like, that's what I'm really like, that's where I really network. That's where I've been building slowly. My network, that's where I learn a lot of the things that I've learned through LinkedIn, and just seeing what other people share and just being able to learn from other people. And I feel like it definitely keeps me off, Instagram and Twitter from like scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, because it's just designed essentially for networking and working.
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever platform suits you best is the way to do it. Tiara, is there anything else that you think we should add to our conversation today?
Sorry, it's always so hard to pick that find that unmute button, but I think that we are going to go ahead and it's fine that we wrap up. I know we're wrapping up early, but we were able to get through things quickly because there were less people in our space. But do you see my slides on here? Okay, yeah, so we'll just go through these series of statements, and we'll participate via the chat box. And then I think that is everything. And then, I guess you already asked your final questions. And then I also recognize, Diana, that you have to hop off early too. So we want to wrap you up so you can get to where you need to go next as well. All right, Isabella.
See, now I'm struggling to find my unmute button. Okay, so type a yes in the chat box if you see yourself on a mission. I will participate. Type a yes in the chat box if you will connect everything back to your why. And type a yes in the chat box if you're going to be the captain of your own ship and take agency of your own journey. And of course, type a yes in the chat box if you're ready to take action now. Thanks for coming. Super cool to do this in such a small group. I'm really glad to have gotten to know you and just be able to, oh yeah, the LinkedIn link. Good stuff. I will connect with you right now.